Okay, folks, this is another lecture for communication application. The title of this lecture is The Nature of Oral Language. The notes are available on Canvas. Again, if you need to pause, go backward, move forward faster, do it as you will. I'm going to be moving at a relatively brisk pace through this presentation, but you're able to pause or do whatever you like with the video as you go along with the notes that are available on Canvas for you to print out on your own. The information on here you will be tested on. Again, things you want to, I'll try and highlight them throughout the lecture, but things you want to keep an eye out for are words in italics, bold words, words with definitions, and lists of things. So keep that in mind. Let's move forward. The nature of oral language. Speech is learned purposeful behavior. It's something you depend on every day to reach out to friends, express your ideas and feelings, accomplish your goals, and meet your needs. Looking carefully at language from a new perspective can give you insight and a new appreciation for the potential power of language. So defining language. Language is a system used for human communication. Like other systems, language consists of components and processes that interact to achieve a desired result or purpose. There's the definition of oral language. Language that is spoken and heard rather than written or read. Language has rules. Language is governed by rules that make the system work, give it order, and make it possible for us to understand one another. The conventions for oral language are seldom taught directly. New speakers learn rules for oral language as they listen to others and learn to speak and use the language. No one explains to a child that every sentence must have a subject and a verb, but the child learns to understand and use words and put them together to form complete thoughts that are consistent with the ways language is used in the child's culture. Language is like a code. Each language system has its own set of agreed-upon conventions and rules that regulate the system and make it different from other languages. A language system is often referred to as a code. Each code has a unique system of sounds, symbols, and structures as determined by the rules that govern the use of the particular language. So let's talk about the differences between oral language and written language. It may be helpful to think of oral language and written language as two separate codes. Oral language is sometimes considered the primary code because it is the language you learn first, the one you use every day, and the language you use most often. Writing is a secondary code because it is based on an attempt to describe speech sounds. Writing preserves thought and speech and provides a code to substitute for speech when speech is not possible. The two systems are interdependent and interrelated. However, there are differences in the way they approach language. Standards for oral communication are based on appropriateness, while standards for writing are based on correctness. Something you need to remember for your test. Speech choices should be appropriate for the specific situation or context, while writing should be correct according to the rules for the specific form. Characteristics of oral language. In order to understand language as a system, we need to look at the specific series of characteristics and processes that interact to make the language system work. The characteristics of oral language system are meaning, vocabulary, structure, grammar, and sound. Let's go over those individually. First, meaning. The data we observe in the world has no meaning of its own except that which we assign to it. The word symbols we use to talk about or describe the data have no meaning other than those we give them. We communicate with others based on the meanings we assign to things around us and the symbols we use to communicate those meanings. When people share knowledge and understanding of language, they are able to communicate effectively. A broad base of knowledge and meaning on a wide range and variety of subjects, along with knowledge of language, provides a base for effective communication. Next, vocabulary. There's a definition in italics. All the word symbols that make up a particular code or language. Your personal vocabulary is the total collection of word symbols you know and use to think, to express yourself, and to listen and respond to others. Having a large, flexible vocabulary is important because language is symbolic, has standards for appropriateness, and adds interest to communication. The symbolic nature of language. Word symbols have no meaning of their own. Instead, the meaning of a symbol resides within individuals. Symbols are always open to interpretation. The uncertain and fragile nature of words as symbols makes them particularly sensitive to proper usage. The problem with words and symbols is that we cannot know what a particular word symbol means to someone else. 100%. We can't know exactly what a symbol means to somebody else. Keep that in mind for your test. The arbitrary nature of symbols means that the more symbols we have at our disposal to express a specific concept or meaning, the more apt we are to choose symbols that are understood by listeners. If you want to communicate your meaning clearly to others, a large collection of word symbols may assist you. Next, standards for appropriateness. Another reason for building a large, flexible vocabulary is to communicate appropriately in a variety of situations. For this purpose, you will need a large collection of word symbols that are appropriate for expressing who you are, what you mean and feel, and what you are really like. You will also need a wide variety of word symbols to meet the needs of your listener, your occasion, and your task. You need different kinds of language and a large collection of word symbols to communicate appropriately in different contexts and situations. You might speak casually with friends and family, use special terminology at work or school, and use more standard language for formal situations. On some occasions, you may even use artistic language such as poetry or song to express your creative side. Adding interest to communication. A large, flexible vocabulary can add interest, originality, vitality, and clarity to your communication. As your lifestyle expands into professional and social contexts, you will discover a need to expand your vocabulary to meet the norms of new situations. Why is it important to build your vocabulary? 1. Your language makes an impression on others and influences their perceptions of who you are and what you are like. 2. Language depends heavily on context and is subject to standards for appropriateness. Meeting standards shows skilled use of language. Number 3. A large vocabulary allows you to express yourself clearly and effectively in a wide range of situations with a wide variety of people. 4. The ability to express yourself clearly and interpret and respond to the messages of others appropriately and accurately is vital in professional and social contexts. Lastly, building a large vocabulary is an easy way to add interest and personality to your image as a communicator. You are in control of your image as a communicator. Next, structure. There's a definition. It is the way the different parts of a language are arranged. Both words and sentences must follow an accepted structure in order to carry meaning from a speaker to a listener. Words have syllables that go in a particular order and influence the function and meaning of the word. The way to build words in language is regulated by the particular code or structure of the language. Speakers learn to arrange words and sentences so that their thoughts are stated clearly for audiences to understand and remember. People who interview others learn to structure questions clearly so that they can get the answers they desire. In the workplace, in the classroom, and in interpersonal situations, clear and appropriate language structures are important for clear communication. Next, grammar. There's the definition, the basic understandings and rules that regulate the use of a language. These rules identify all the different components of a language, explain their functions, and dictate the way they are used in communication. If you could watch your encoding process in slow motion, you would realize that you first assign meaning to the data and then choose language symbols or vocabulary to express what you want to say. Following that, you have to structure your ideas into the complete thought you want to express. And finally, you formulate the statement to incorporate the grammar of the code so that you can make a literate and articulate statement. All the steps tend to occur subconsciously and simultaneously as you speak and express your ideas. Next is sound. Sound is central to the very idea of oral language. Oral means uttered or spoken. Keep that in mind for your test. Every oral language has its own sounds that represent its unique set of word symbols. Without sound, the words cannot convey meaning orally. Moving on to the importance of sound. Sounds not only are vital for understanding the words of a language, they also affect the interpretation of the messages. The way you sound affects the messages you send to others. What your spoken words convey to others is an important part of your image and effectiveness as a communicator. Sound and image. Fair or not, individuals often are judged and labeled according to the way their speech sounds. Speakers, for example, can gain or lose credibility or ethos because of the way they sound. A speaker who is articulate and clear can give a speech that has little or no worthwhile content and still be perceived credible by listeners. How you sound is an important part of the message you convey. It takes focused thought, appropriate language, and clear, articulate speech to communicate effectively with others. Characteristics of speech: sound. Everyone who speaks shapes the sounds of his or her speech in a unique way. There are some general guidelines we should all try to follow when it comes to forming words. The way your words sound can affect the message you send. If you sloppily run together the words of a formal introduction, you may be perceived as lazy or disrespectful. If you continually mispronounce words during a job interview, you could be perceived as uneducated or careless. If you speak with a heavy regional accent, people may have trouble understanding you. Diction. At some point in your life, you probably have heard a speaker who pronounced words incorrectly, did not complete words, or changed the sound so much that he or she seemed to be saying another word entirely. If so, you might say that the person had poor diction. There's a definition: the degree of clarity and distinctness in a person's speech. It is the way his or her words are spoken. A person with good diction speaks clearly and uses appropriate and effective speech sounds to get his or her meaning across. Your own diction is determined by the choices you make in pronunciation, articulation, and enunciation. So, there's pronunciation and its definition, the standard set for the overall sound of a word. It is important to know that a mispronounced word can confuse the meaning of a message and reflect poorly on a speaker's credibility, or ethos, or image. On the other hand, clear, appropriate word pronunciation is the mark of a knowledgeable and literate communicator. Articulation, there's a definition: the act of clearly and distinctly uttering the consonant sounds of a word. There are 4 types of articulation problems that can interfere with speech, and they are omission, addition, substitution, and slurring. Again, anytime you see lists of things, those will be on a test. Omission. Sometimes people omit or leave out certain consonants within a word. An example, someone says dala instead of dollar, or hip instead of help. Addition. This type of problem occurs when a person adds extra consonant sounds to a word. An example could be someone saying wash instead of wash, or Florida instead of Florida. Substitution. This occurs when a speaker substitutes one consonant for another. An example, idn't instead of isn't, or important instead of important. Slurring occurs when speakers simply slide over a group of sounds, pronouncing some, but failing, to give proper emphasis to others. Example, jeet instead of did you eat, and no view instead of no have you. Enunciation is the act of clearly and distinctly uttering the vowel sounds of a word. Sometimes vowel sounds can become distorted as a result of faulty placement of teeth, tongue, or lips as a vowel sound is formed. Example, if you say get instead of get, it may be because the jaw and lips are not properly open to shape the short E sound. Most of the time, poor enunciation is subconscious, but by paying attention to vowel sounds, you can learn to enunciate clearly and effectively. Dialect. Dialect can be used to describe two different aspects of speech. Dialect can refer to a language that exists only in oral form. Navajo is an example of a language that exists only in oral form. Dialect can also be a unique combination of speech sounds that identify speech with a particular group of people. The dialect of a specific region may have different vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciations from dialects of other regions. Some dialects are similar enough to others that they are simply referred to as accents. An example of a regional dialect could be Southern drawl, where people say I'm fixing to do something, and say y'all instead of you all, y'all. Ethnic and cultural dialect. Dialect also can relate to the speech characteristics of various ethnic or cultural groups. Sometimes these groups may continue to use some of the characteristics of their first or native language when speaking another language. In today's society, people from all regions of the world communicate with each other across all sorts of language, ethnic, and cultural lines. Because all these variations can work against the effectiveness of communication, it is important for your speech to be as clear as possible. Although strong regional, ethnic, or cultural dialects may be perfectly acceptable for informal communication within the culture, they may be less appropriate for more general contexts. An example, if you listen to a national newscast, you will seldom find the anchor using a regional dialect. To function effectively in most professional and social contexts, individuals need to develop diction that is clear and easy to understand by a variety of listeners. So, developing skills for power language. Through sophisticated thought and language, human beings are set apart from animals. Language has allowed us to communicate specific, complex messages, preserve and study others' ideas, and use tools such as persuasion, manipulation, honesty, and conviction to influence those around us. In other words, language is power. So understanding and using power language. We all communicate to meet specific needs and goals. Power language is a valuable tool for enhancing your image as a communicator, achieving positive results, and promoting effective relationships. Characteristics of power language. Clarity, there's a definition. Speech is precise, clearly organized, and grammatical. Speech is easy to understand. Courtesy and tact. Speaker listens empathically, negotiates with respect, disagrees without being disagreeable, and focuses discussions on issues rather than on people. Ownership and thoughts and feelings. Speaker takes responsibility for thoughts and feelings. Speaker uses I messages to express opinions, ideas, and feelings. I was bored rather than that was boring. Inclusion of others. Speaker listens empathically and personalizes speech with direct references to others, saying, "What do you think about the issue?" Or, "I'd really like to hear your opinion." Again, anytime there's lists of things, such as the lists of characteristics of power language, those things will be on a test. Vividness and imagery. Speaker expresses ordinary ideas in new and imaginative ways. Imagery is used to help people visualize complex ideas. Appropriate usage. Speaker uses a level of language that is appropriate for the specific context. So understanding levels of usage. Skilled communicators learn early on that certain types of language strategies are appropriate for different situations. Speech has 5 basic levels of usage, each with its own type of language. These levels of language and usage are formal, technical, standard, informal, and ungrammatical. Standards for using formal language. Formal language, in italics, is the language that conforms to a highly structured set of rules. That is, there are strict standards for dictating its use. Formal language is typically reserved for situations that require rigid protocol and form. Most legal proceedings and many religious services use some type of formal language. Standards for using technical language. Technical language is language associated with a particular profession, activity, or field of study. Another name for technical language is jargon. Jargon is in italics and it's bold. Keep that in mind. Medicine, law, finance, technology, and sports are just a few fields that depend heavily on jargon. Anytime you take a course in a new area of study, enter a new activity, or take a new job, you probably encounter a new technical vocabulary. Technical language often can be misunderstood by those outside the profession or group. Many terms can have different meanings in a variety of areas. Technical language should be avoided when talking to someone outside of your field. Standards for using standard language. Standard language is the language used by the majority of knowledgeable communicators within a specific language. It is what most people refer to as correct speech. The standards for using standard speech include a precise vocabulary, appropriate use of language structures, adherence to the rules of the language, and clarity and diction. Standard language is the level of usage recommended for most professional and social contexts. Standards for using informal language. Informal language is the type of language most often used in casual situations and close interpersonal relationships. It would be incorrect to assume that because language is informal, it has no rules. The standards for using the 2 most common types of oral language, which are colloquialisms and slang, will be analyzed below. A colloquialism is a term associated with a specific regional culture. Most regional dialects contain a number of individual colloquialisms, which often are firmly entrenched in the speech traditions of the people. How are y'all doing? Sleeping with the fishes. It has a meaning other than what it doesn't mean you're taking a nap in the river. It has other meaning to it. Colloquialisms often do not translate well outside of their original culture. They can be easily misinterpreted or completely meaningless to anyone from a different regional culture. Colloquialisms are best reserved for informal communication with close friends or casual relationships within the culture. Heavy reliance on colloquial language may give others the impression that a communicator has limited language skill or education. Slang can be described as a temporary language because it typically is used for a brief period of time by a limited group of people. An example of slang could be RAD, which is short for you fill in the blank. Slang can be compared to a fad in clothing. Both stem from popular culture, and neither tends to last very long. Slang often results from a need to make a language more fun or interesting, or to find new ways to express ideas and feelings. While it is often used to help define who belongs to the in crowd, it also excludes outsiders from understanding or participating in conversations. Ungrammatical language. Ungrammatical language is the language that does not use expected standards of grammar or mechanics. Examples include I seen or they was doing something. Those are not grammatically correct. It's important to try to eliminate this type of language from your speech because it can detract from your message and tarnish your credibility as a speaker. 5 functions of oral language. There is expressing and responding to feelings, informing, controlling or persuading, participating in social rituals, and creating and imagining. And I think we're going to go over each of these. So expressing and responding to feelings. An important aspect of gaining power through language is the ability to put your feelings into words. Equally important is your ability to respond to others' feelings. Expressing feelings. Sometimes, perhaps due to cultural upbringing or lack of confidence, individuals have trouble expressing their feelings to others. Learning to state and label feelings in a rational way can be very empowering. No one can fault you for calmly and honestly stating your feelings. Rather, your words may open the door to discussion and prevent irrational outbursts of emotion. Responding to feelings. A certain amount of power also lies in listening and responding appropriately to the feelings of others. Letting others know that you are attentive to their feelings is a helpful step toward improving the health of your relationships. Next, giving and seeking information. In professional and social contexts, a major function of language is giving and seeking information. Students and teachers, supervisors and employees, group leaders and group members all need to be able to ask questions and provide answers that are clear and effective. The key to providing information to others is using clear language that is appropriate for the speaker, listener, occasion, and task. The ability to phrase questions so that they focus directly on the information needed is a mark of a skilled communicator. Controlling and persuading. A great deal of power relies on your ability to influence others. Much of your effectiveness in making suggestions or requests depends on the language you use. It takes competent communication skills and knowledge to get others to achieve the results you want while still preserving the relationship. The balancing act requires not only clarity, directness, and self-confidence, but also courtesy, tact, and integrity. Participating in social rituals. A social ritual is a communication situation that is frequently repeated in daily social interaction. Making and acknowledging introductions, giving and accepting compliments, engaging in short personal conversations with coworkers, and giving and responding to praise and suggestions are all forms of social rituals. They provide the basis for interpersonal communication in the workplace and group situations. They are the first stepping stones in developing relationships with others. Creating and imagining. The ability to imagine and create is vital to success in almost any area of life. Creativity gives you the ability to find new solutions, generate new ideas, and envision new alternatives, some of the most valuable skills in professional and social contexts. All the imagination and creativity in the world is fairly useless if you cannot adequately express your ideas. That's an idea you need to keep in mind or highlight, because that concept will be on a test. Expressing ideas or describing products that have not yet taken form requires an imaginative and creative use of language. Language to avoid. This is going to be a list of different types of language you want to avoid. Lists and things in italics are going to be on your test. So types of language you want to avoid include sexist language, language that implies that something is more suited to a specific gender. It groups men or women into a category and perpetuates gender-based stereotypes. Racist language. Racist language applies labels or behavioral characteristics to an entire race of individuals. It is the language of prejudice and stereotypes and is extremely offensive. Profane or obscene. Profane language is vulgar, irreverent, or abusive language that can be considered offensive in social and professional contexts. Dependence on profanity or obscenity can damage a speaker's credibility. You probably have that one friend that curses all the time. Judgmental. Judgmental language implies an inappropriate evaluation or critique of someone or something. Accusatory. Using you messages improperly can make a speaker sound bossy or judgmental. The listener may feel as if he or she is being accused or attacked. Assumptive. Assumptive language implies that everyone shares your views, opinions, or concerns. And absolutes. Absolutes assume that there are no exceptions. Absolute language is risky for two reasons. One, few things stay the same forever. And two, there are exceptions to almost every rule. Understanding denotations and connotations. A denotation, there's a definition, a word's objective description or meaning, a definition found in the dictionary. Connotation, the emotions or feelings with which a word is used. The emotions or feelings with which a word is associated. Felt meaning behind the word. Using words that have strong emotional associations often requires careful analysis of the listener and the occasion. Real quick with denotation and connotation. Denotation is the definition of the word from the dictionary. Connotation is how the word makes you feel. So I can say, how are you doing today? You say, I'm doing cool. It doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're doing great. You're having a good day. Denotatively. Connotatively, it means you're having an easy day. Developing your vocabulary so that you better understand the connotations of various words will help you communicate your intentions more clearly to others and avoid unintentionally offending them. Avoiding powerless language. Powerless language tends to accomplish very little and does nothing to enhance another's perceptions of a speaker, and therefore does not contribute to powerful speech. It actually erodes a speaker's power by making him or her seem indecisive or lacking in confidence. Fillers. Filler is a word or phrase used to cover up hesitancy in speech. Some common fillers are and like. Whenever you guys do presentations, fillers are going to be something that's going to take away from the possible potential of your grade. When these words are used to fill gaps in speech, they not only add no value to the message, but they also detract from the speaker's image as a competent communicator. Tags. A tag is a statement or question added to the end of a statement to invite approval or cooperation from others. Like fillers, tags can make speakers appear as if they lack confidence or knowledge. Vague wording. Vague, unproductive sentences often rely heavily on words such as it, they, or but. These sentences tend to be throwaways. providing little information and detracting from your power as a communicator. By including relevant details, you can make your speech more valuable to listeners. The words or expressions you use can be your best ally or your worst enemy. Choosing and using power language is a real asset to everyday communication. It not only can help you get the results you want from your interactions with others, but it can also help you achieve the goals of becoming a competent communicator. So that's it for the nature of oral communication. Hopefully you took the time to fill in your notes so you'll have something to study. Good luck.